Hey everyone, Vero Journalist here, and today we will be diving into Kimetsu no Yaiba again, a manga that many have been in love with, and even after ending, many people still think fondly back on it. I'm sure some people ended up disliking the main villain due to him having kind of little depth to him. At least I feel that way. Who knows, maybe I've just been pampered too much by Danganronpa and other media, and ahem. Maybe there would be more I could find for a future video if I didn't want him. But the manga is so wonderful and such a journey to go on, and I think that made it something really special. Even characters you were groomed to hate could surprise you. I think no other character encapsulates this idea like our Upper Moon 3 demon Akaza. Also known as Hakuji, since I know it's been a while since the manga has ended and, very long while since I did a video on the manga at all, I'll do a short and accurate recap of Akaza's story. So here's a quick, very accurate summary. We start with our misunderstood protagonist. So our protagonist Hakuji is stealing from people in order to get his sick father's medicine. He's caught and the man is angry, though the kid is like 11 and he has a sick father, but whatever, dude. Hakuji gets lashes to the back and a threat to have his hands cut off, but Hakuji is one tough kid, so he doesn't really care. Soon, though, he finds out his father hanged himself because he felt like he was a burden to his son. This devastated Hakuji, and he beat up the villagers who caused his father grief. To this point, and is tattooed and exiled. He gets beat up by a mean man who sentences Hakuji to being a nanny. No, actually, it's a really nice guy who asks Hakuji to please take care of his sick daughter, Koyuki, who's the same age and suffering from sickness. The man, Keizo, is the first person to show Hakuji kindness, even though Hakuji is a branded criminal. Over the years, Hakuji is taught how to use his unnatural strength to protect the dojo and his new family. He ends up nursing Koyuki back to health, and they fall in love, and her hand is even offered to him in marriage. He goes to talk to his father's spirit and pray, but when he comes back home, some rival dojo poisoned Hakuji's family, once again leaving him alone. Hakuji's shaken by the fact that he once again couldn't protect what mattered to him. In his rage, he he plays golf with them, with his fists. Anyway, I'm not gonna use Michael Jackson meme because it's used all the time anyway. So this guy moves on, is like, wow, I thought you were a demon because of your strength. Anyway, when he makes Hakuji a demon and he ranks up to Upper Moon 3, only being beat out by Doma and Kokushibo. He fights the Flame Pillar Rengoku, almost gets his ass beat, but he runs away in time, and Rengoku dies, making everyone hate Akaza. But then you see him fight Tanjiro and Giyu, and you get his backstory, now he's a favorite. He gets beat, but not really. He could have kept fighting, but didn't, and goes to hell. But he gets to use his love, so I guess that's a cute end to a tragic story. Okay, we can now focus on important little things without the satire. Despite my attempt at humor, there's a lot of tragedy surrounding Akaza's life, and a lot of it slips into his design and even his characteristics. Unlike Doma, Akaza's mental state shows between his design as a human and design as a demon. With Doma, people sorta knew what we were getting into with his character, whether we realized it at the time or not. Looking back on it now, my expectations of Doma were only subverted because with a lot of demons, we see them get tragic backstories which show a side of humanity. But honestly, not all people show what we perceive as human characteristics. Really, looking at someone like Akaza, there's several people in this story who I would say are less than human, given their actions, and could even be seen as the demons everyone is so afraid of. I find it very ironic that Akaza is called a demon child before becoming a demon himself, as he is one of the most selfless people at first glance. His only real downfall is his expectations of how other people will act, or lack of expectation for other people. Not everyone has the same ideas and morals as he does, unfortunately. Just a little brief bonus clip that I wanted to add in. If I am mispronouncing the name Keizo at all, just let me know in the comments, because I really had trouble finding a Japanese pronunciation of the name, And so, yeah, just let me know, because I feel kind of stupid saying it. Thank you. As the first part of Akaza's introduction, we will discuss both his names and their meaning, though there will be more to discuss regarding them later on in this video, so keep that in mind. Hakuji can translate to white porcelain, while Akaza can translate to a red cushion, seat, chair, or other sitting-based furniture. Porcelain I will discuss more later, but Hakuji, having literally started from the bottom in society, can represent dirt or clay, which is used to make porcelain, which he arguably is made into after he meets Keiso and his fiancée. He has gone through the fires in life in a sense, and at first he had overcome them. However, when he kills 67 swordsmen with his bare hands, that puts blood literally on his hands, which turns white porcelain red. While I don't have many conclusions for why his name can translate to a seat of much kind, my own theory regarding it could be that the furniture is typically made from flammable resources such as wood. I can see this as Akaza reverting back to being someone lower than porcelain. Porcelain endures flames as that's what creates it, while wood only fuels them further. My friend also mentioned how she sees it more like when porcelain is set on a cushion safely, but then if someone were to come along and tip the porcelain off, it leaves a broken mess and only the cushion remaining. Another part of Akaza's design lies in insecurity. Hakuji is treated like an outcast, but this seemingly doesn't make him fazed. In his heart, he knows everything he did, he felt he was in the right for, because it was to help people who were less fortunate than he is. At one point, he says he never once thought of taking care of his late fiancée as a chore, rather it was the least he could do as a healthy person. He says this about his father as well, who seemed he was a burden, but Hakuji says he never was at all. The only regrets Hakuji had ever had was not protecting those he loves. When he harmed others after his tragedies would occur, I think he was likely projecting, because he himself feels weak. When he kills the entire neighboring dojo and Muzan finds him, he becomes a demon because he felt there was nothing to live for anymore, and after killing so many people, his soul was already doomed. Now we compare this to his demon counterpart. His insecurity revolves around not being the strongest Upper Moon. He has a purely selfish desire to be the strongest demon under Muzan, yet reacts out of anger when demons like Doma and Kokushibo both point out how much stronger they are. He only remembers the names of people who he believed were strong compared to himself, and often wished to turn them into a demon. I particularly feel that this could tie into his loneliness, as there's no other demon he really seems to like, but his world revolves around fighting. It could be argued he simply wanted to please Muzan, as he was one of Muzan's favorites, by contrast to Doma, who is one of his least favorites. Though it is also shown Akaza seemed to be in the mindset of his 11-year-old self, not exactly as if he was 11, but more like he was obsessed with beating people in order to help his father, though he didn't realize this until he began to recover his memories. This is more likely what drives him, though. He doesn't realize it until then. Another notable personality trait of Akaza's that stems from Hakuji is his hatred for people he perceives as weak. This obviously seems to be started by the rival dojo who poisoned the water and killed Keizo and Koyuki because they couldn't beat Hakuji or Keizo in a fair fight. The rival dojos around them would recruit people, so Keizo never had anyone to teach in an attempt to beat him for his land. When that didn't work, they resorted to drastic measures. This is almost kind of ironic, considering Shinobu Kocho, the weakest of the Hashira in terms of strength, wins battles using her specially made poison, though she of course does demonstrate an immense amount of skill, and honestly beating Muzan never would have been possible without her special concoctions. And, I mean, he's the real coward anyway, so I don't think Akaza would have been that upset. There are 3 notable people who Akaza battles in the story, them being Rengoku, Gyu, and Tanjiro. Rengoku meets his end by Akaza earlier on in the story, but is the core reason why people disliked Akaza early on. Actually, he was the reason. Rengoku is an extremely lovable character who helps the core trio out during their train mission. Despite being around for a very short time, his impact on the rest of the story is undeniable, as it affects every pillar in their own way. He was by far one of the strongest Hashira, as seen by his ability to nearly take down Akaza, if not for Akaza being able to detach himself from his own arm. There's a lot that can be seen in the two. Rengoku may not have had a good father figure in his life, his father's addiction to alcohol even making him unhealthy, while Akaza's had an unstated illness, although he does hang himself as well, which can be compared to the slow suicide of alcoholism, though that's a large stretch. Rengoku does fight to make his younger brother proud as well, though. That takes his principles from his mother, who taught him to protect the weak because he was born strong. Though it can be argued Akaza didn't have to learn this, just ended up conforming to a world that treated him wrong. It can be argued his father would prevent Rengoku from being a demon slayer, since it could mean death or PTSD from him, and it is a horrible way of trying to protect his sons, but it's similar to how Akaza's father hanged himself so Akaza could have his best chance, but it inadvertently caused him worse trauma. Rengoku's hair is stated to also be considered unnatural, which may have made him an outsider. His family doesn't mention too much in the manga regarding their lives outside of being slayers. Another thing I found interesting is that Rengoku's surname can translate to purgatory. I think in a way this can be a way to convey how Akaza was in a purgatory of his own. Not many people can say they fought Akaza and came out victorious, but Rengoku nearly took him down with him. Tanjiro calling him a coward for running also stirred something in him. A character he can also have parallels drawn from is another person he battled, Giyu. Giyu suffers from an inferiority complex due to being saved by others who died in his stead. When he battles Akaza, Akaza acknowledges his strength and even says water pillars he's fought haven't been this strong in about 50 years. Giyu does tend to suppress his emotions in contrast to Akaza, but did nearly have a similar experience in his life. Tanjiro, much like Akaza's mentor Keizo, helps to save Giyu from his own feelings of failure stemming from survivor's guilt. But then, near the end of the manga, when Tanjiro nearly dies, you see the despair wash over Giyu as if he once again has failed to protect an ally, similar to Akaza when he loses his family twice. Something interesting about Giyu is that his name can translate to heroic and courageous, which is comparable to Akaza, who at the age of 11 was prepared to endure brutal beatings and possible amputation just to help his sick father. He could almost be seen as a Robin Hood type figure in this aspect, who most would categorize as a hero. Giyu also demonstrates his courage, despite having survivor's guilt and wanting to leave the Demon Core group. He sees Tanjiro resolve to protect Nezuko and ends up staying to save others, and shows an even stronger resolve when Tanjiro continues to prod for him to help them in the final battle. While Giyu seems less interested in the beginning, he does everything he can to protect Tanjiro, laying his life down and swears to kill himself if Nezuko ever is to attack a human, and he never strays from helping Tanjiro in his battles between Akaza and Muzan, even losing his arm and injuring his side to the point that he had to burn the wound closed. I find Akaza's name Hakuchi interesting as it means white porcelain, and the way porcelain is made is by mixing raw materials with water and firing it in a kiln. It could be argued that the flame pillar and the water pillar helped in making Akaza remember his old self. When I first began researching, the person I thought of being a great parallel to Akaza is none other than the demon-smelling, lovable protagonist Tanjiro. Tanjiro is shown to be a very compassionate person early on, and despite his name having the kanji for charcoal, he is one of the most pure characters in the story, unable to even keep a straight face when lying. When his family is killed, it causes anger to resonate in him, much like Akaza. But unlike Akaza, Tanjiro still has his sister Nezuko, who had been turned into a demon. However, despite the strong possibility that Nezuko could kill him or other people, he refuses to give up on her humanity and fights to protect her no matter the risks, even when he is breaking many codes and possibly putting people in danger. He is loyal to a fault and determined to get stronger to protect her, and despite there being cruelty in the world, Tanjiro never stops looking for the good in others. Akaza, on the other hand, fought to protect people who died when he wasn't there, just like Tanjiro's family, but Akaza had nobody else left. He also was never given a chance to see the good in people. It can be said that humans were the cruel ones in Akaza's eyes, while Tanjiro lost his family to demons. They are two people who could have ended up the exact same way if circumstances had been different. I think this is why Akaza is notably harsh to Tanjiro during their battles, because he sees himself in Tanjiro things that he hates. Tanjiro calling him a coward early on even fuels his anger. Rengoku, though having fatally been injured, was determined to see his fight through, but Akaza quickly fled after seeing the sun come up. While of course a demon would have to run from being in the sun, as it is a demon's weakness, it's exactly that, a weakness. This does show more when Akaza becomes more obsessed with finding this blue spider lily that would supposedly make demons immune to the sun. It is important to note that when Tanjiro is turned into a demon at the end, he immediately is able to conquer the sun, the one weakness every demon has. In a funny way, this could go back to the Buddhist imagery in Akaza if you considered the sun to represent enlightenment, and while Akaza as a demon represents the dark version or unenlightened Buddha, while Tanjiro could represent the Buddha who has achieved it. I'll go more into detail on the Buddhist imagery in a moment. For now, an obvious comparison, which is between Akaza and Doma, is the fact that while Doma relies on preying on women, Akaza refuses to kill a woman or child. He focuses on eating only men, and many see this as a part of his humanity still seeping through even after being turned into a demon. Muzan also was alright with this. I think the main reason Doma got away with focusing on women was that he got an endless supply due to his cult leader status anyway. Meanwhile, Akaza would have had to go out and find trouble, which wouldn't be too difficult with his taunting as well as the tattoos on his body. These tattoos are actually real-life tattoos that were used prominently from 1400s to 1700s that would brand criminals to show they have been exiled and from where they were exiled. His original tattoos were, and forgive my pronunciation, I'm a brainlet American, Chikuzen, 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 where he had a line tattooed each time he committed a crime. It is possible that when he was turned into a demon, he saw those men he killed at the dojo as individual crimes, and thus his transformation added one for each of the 67. I could also see him having them in different places to show he is exiled from everywhere in Japan. I lean more towards it being in the earlier stages of becoming common, simply due to the fact that the man who tattoos Hakuji says that if he steals again, his arms would be amputated. The tattooing, according to my research, began as a way to avoid amputation, as they were beginning to find it to be an inhumane form of punishment at the time. But it was still a common method. Because of this, I find it likely to have occurred earlier, possibly the 1400s, but maybe edging into the 1500s. It's just my own thought on it, though, and I could be wrong, and they could just be that inhumane in that area at a different time period. So this is all kind of speculation, to be clear. Continuing on with some of the speculation, because it has more interesting parts to its designs, and I encourage any ideas on it in the comments if anyone has more thoughts on the matter. But he's wearing a Hiyori, which I guess is obvious. The beads, though, are what caught my eye, and I started researching about them a lot. My idea I had while looking into it were Buddhist rosaries, due to that being a prominent religion in Japan and notable in Kimetsu no Yaiba as well. Buddhist beads are normally extremely sacred to the religion, and from my understanding from the research I did, the taboos over time regarding them have changed. I'm super interested in if anyone has insight on this topic in the comments. What I did confirm is specifically wearing beads in places other than where they're meant to be worn is a big no-no. According to a post by James Ford, he quoted an expert saying, writing in 1933, Ito Kokan, a professor at Komazawa University, noted that while many people carry rosaries, they cannot be called Buddhists if they do not know what the rosary means. There is also the danger, he said, of treating the rosary as a decorative art object, which, if loved, should not be used, since that improper sentiment will only increase the owner's bad karma. The beads on Akaza's ankles are, of course, what I am referring to. This was just my best idea of what they could represent, as you don't see them when he is Akuji, and it could make a lot of sense. Hakuchi was also born with pink eyelashes and sharp teeth, making everyone dub him to be a demon child. I find it ironic that fangs are important to the design. They almost remind me of snake fangs, which in many cultures can represent medicine, as they have a lot of medicinal properties. Though a lot of people connect them more to poison due to a fear of snakes, and Hakuji being called a demon child invokes fear of him and his temper. It is undeniable he has a dangerous side to him, but it can't be denied how much he helps others. It's also ironic since the samurai surrounding them are the ones who actually use poison. Another interesting design choice is Akaza's eyes, which appear to have a broken glass design. Broken glass can symbolize disconnection, isolation, and weakness. I think it could also symbolize Akaza's broken mentality at the end of his human life, when he had nothing else to live for and was ready to give up and die. Glass, even porcelain like its name in general, can symbolize a fragile protective barrier, which is likely how Hakuji saw himself. After all, he failed to protect what mattered most to him. Because they're blue, they also made me think of frosted ice, which is fragile in nature and fleeting, which is also what Hakuji saw his life as after all the death that occurred in his. There's much snow imagery in Akaza's design, as well as pink colors in his demon design. This has very much to do with his late fiancée, Koyuki. Koyuki's name has the kanji for love and snow, and she also wore a pink kimono with a snowflake pattern. Pinks are usually colors that are symbolic of love, while snow can be fleeting like Akaza views it in his worst moments, but it can also be unique and pure, which I think could represent the love he had for Koyuki, and really Koyuki herself represents purity in her own right, having been a frail sick girl, unable to do much on her own, and even apologizing for being any trouble. She's also seen to get emotional and cry when Hakuji tells her to not apologize and says they will see fireworks the next year when she is too sick to see them the current year. It was the first time anyone had ever acted as though she would live to see the next year. There's a point to be made that when Muzan attempts to take control of Akaza and pushes him to kill Tanjiro and Giyu during their fight, Koyuki's pure love is what overcame Muzan, who is filled with nothing but cruelty. Hakuji, I would also guarantee, would hate Muzan due to Muzan's cowardice and his using people who are weaker than him. Hakuji is stubborn and listens to very few people, especially when he has no respect for them. Akaza, however, is like a seat in a sense. He does everything for Muzan, which is likely why he is one of his favorite demons. Why recruit strong demons, search for the blue spiral lily, or battle strong pillars yourself when the Upper Moon 3 demon does it for you? Continuing on the symbolism of snow, it can also represent beauty and tranquility, which is where Hakuji was on the path to, but it can also often represent death, which I believe Akaza as a demon had twisted the purity into. However, when he ultimately rests his soul and goes to hell, he is followed there by Koyuki, who is determined for him to not go alone. Melting snow can represent the end to hardships and a new beginning. While they aren't seen reincarnated, I believe there is a new path for them somewhere else, where they can be together, much like Yutaro and Ume, who were also seen going to hell together and saying they will be together no matter what. I do want to close off this part by mentioning Not the Bad Guy, who has done a more in-depth analysis on both Giyu and Rengoku if anyone is interested in learning more in-depth on their characters. Akaza and Hakuji are both very skilled fighters as well, as Hakuji was born with unnatural strength and is taught skills by Keizo. Soryu is a relatively new martial art form, but is what inspired the made-up fighting style that Akaza is taught by his master. Soryu can mean one's movements should all flow like water, always straightforward, never jagged, never struggling. What I found that was really interesting is the 5 rules of Soryu karate. 1 is planning, to work out a feasible plan. 2 is endeavor, make a diligent effort. 3 is enjoyment, relish in your human nature and remember to enrich your life. 4 is self-searching, Reflect on your behavior and seek progress where you train. 5 is continuity. Fulfill your plans in continuous effort and determination. Much of this can be seen as pretty ironic, considering Akaza as a demon doesn't really follow all the way through, while Hakuchi likely did until his trauma. Akaza isn't much of a planner, but is more of someone who acts. This isn't to say he isn't good at thinking ahead in battle, but more like he is seen to underestimate people in the battles we have seen him be a part of. I do think he is very goal-oriented and can see Endeavor being one of the few rules he follows, but even then, you can argue that Akaza does do a lot of things effortlessly, at least at the beginning of battles, and I honestly do see him put more effort into escaping, as he is already practically going to beat a single pillar on his own, no doubt. Though you can see the effort he puts into being better than other demons and is pushed to be stronger, though he handicaps himself by not eating women or children, which also can be seen as going against this rule. The third is likely the most ironic, as Akaza not only did not enjoy life when he was human due to all the tragic events growing up, but actively became a demon who was extremely tunnel visioned on getting stronger to the point that he only remembered people who he believed would have made a great demon based on their strength. This is ironic for his human form as well, as relishing in human life wasn't so easy for him, though enriching his life by helping others can be seen as a sign of Hakuchi enjoying it in his own way before it was gone. Reflecting on Akaza's behavior and self-searching could actually be an interesting addition to the idea that his eyes are meant to represent broken glass. As a demon, training, of course, isn't necessary, nor do we ever see Akaza do training as a demon, since there really is no point. All he can do is indulge in eating people to grow stronger than others, those being Doma and Kokushibo. Hakuchi did follow this rule, where he reflected on his father's choice to kill himself, and Hakuchi reflected on his own past choices to steal medicine, which ultimately led to his choice his father made and attempted to put his skills to use as an honest fighter and caretaker rather than turning to crime when he is given that second chance. The one thing that held him back was his inability to follow the fifth rule, continuity. As sad as it is, everything he had worked for wasn't coming back. He could have kept his land and met someone new, but it was unlikely since even Keizo was unable to recruit people to the dojo due to the excessive amount of people fighting for the land. Hakuchi would have likely lived out most of his life in isolation and paranoia since everyone would want to kill him. Also, you have to consider that since his arms are tattooed, it's hard to say the land would have been inherited to him fairly in the first place. He very well could have been on the streets, living exactly the same as before, only this time with no one to care for. Akaza also doesn't follow this final rule, but for a more noble reason. Akaza was able to regenerate his head after Tanjiro cut it off like Muzan or Kokushibo could. However, instead of allowing himself to continue fighting and likely kill Tanjiro and Gyu both, he chose to go to hell gracefully and apologize to his master and fiancé. Thank goodness for the two that Akaza does not follow his rules to a T. Technique development is the name of Akaza's blood demon art, and it is more support-based than many other demon arts in my opinion. At least one of the abilities is, I guess the rest of them are technically moves, but I'm pretty sure if he beats 67 people to a pulp as a human, does he really need it all that bad, really? It more so enhances his fighting style, as Akaza is already extremely strong on his own, though it does include shockwaves, and some are seen as a reference to fireworks, which is what his late fiancé and he promised to see together when she was too sick to go. I also found interesting that Rengoku may have had bad hearing after a battle he had with the flute demon on his first mission, and Tanjiro was stated to be tone deaf on multiple occasions. Imagine if Zenitsu had to face Akaza. His amazing hearing likely would have caused him an immense amount of pain. More on Akaza's technique development is that it takes on the shape of a snowflake when it is shown, yet another nod to his late fiancée showing how deeply he cared for her. His compass needle is literally a needle that follows bloodlust. This is what he uses normally to keep track of the movement of battle, especially during Rengoku's battle. It could exist because his lack of noticing bloodlust or impending death in his previous life could have made it an ability he wished he had. While it's not a useless ability at all, it is seen to be avoided by Tanjiro by willing his bloodlust to not be shown. This is one of the reasons I believe the theory that Akaza would be stronger than Doma isn't true. Many do argue Akaza is stronger, but in my humble opinion, he has potential, and I see where people are coming from, but keep in mind, because Doma was poisoned, we don't get to see him go all out, and he doesn't take the battle seriously until it's too late. Also consider that Akaza deploying his compass needle would likely not work to help him keep up with Doma, nor his ice clones, as someone who lacks emotions would probably be extremely difficult to track with this ability. I also do not believe it would be in a million years working on Kokushibo, but even if it did, Kokushibo would still win hands down. Like, his ability to quickly cover ground faster than Akaza, who prefers to do long-range fighting with his Blood Demon art, yeah, I don't think it would work ever. Not in a million years. By the way, I don't know if there is a type of compass that numbers 1 to 10, nor can I find any moment that it mentioned why his compass ranges 1 to 10, but if anyone is aware, please let me know in the comments, because I've been unable to find much on my own. More than likely, it's just a creative choice, and I'm probably trying to find symbolism where there isn't any. Speaking of Blood Demon arts, the ones actually named after fireworks are Chaotic Blue Afterglow, Dual Layered Demon Wick, Bone Burning Sun, Destructive Kill Leg Style Ring of 1,000 Flying Planets, Explosive Flurry, Blow of 1,000 Flashes, and Crown Splitter. This Reddit user shared this on Reddit, obviously, to show what each looks like, which made this research a lot easier for me. I only bring it up after the compass needle, as these are the main attacks, while the compass is more of a support for his already superhuman strength. Also, I do want to mention that the names that I use for these are going to deviate a little bit, as the translation is different for a few of them. So just keep that in mind, but I will be showing it on screen so you're aware which move I'm speaking of. I wouldn't be too surprised if more were named after fireworks on top of that, because many of them just make me think of fireworks, like his air type attack, where he does a multi-hit attack similar to fireworks with multiple explosions. His disorder chaotic type is also an interesting one, since it sends a particular shockwave forward, though that can be more or less any firework, honestly. I do think it can tie to his anti-Buddhist design as a demon based on it being chaotic, and based on disorder. Annihilation type is also a forward attack, though it's preceded with the jump. It is able to stop Rengoku's Purgatory attack, which makes sense since Annihilation means matter and antimatter cancel out, which also results in an explosion. So it can be assumed that's the point to the power, and it's used to cancel out another attack, which, thanks to Virtue's Last Reward for teaching me about that. The 8-layer demon core is a reference to a firework, but I think it can also be traced to the 8 principles of martial arts rules, which are referred to as layers. Feet, posture, mind, breath, internal, power, wedge, and spiral are all part of this principle and explain how each aspect is important to doing well. Though it's a demon version, so some parts are obviously no longer as important, such as breath. I looked up Crown Splitter and got Destiny 2. Well, since the head can be referred to as the crown or where crowns go, I guess we can just say it's a skull splitter type attack. Not much to read into here. It is based on a firework though. That's cool. Explosive Flurry is an attack I personally think is meant to be conveying something along the lines of a flurry of snow, hinting to once again Koyuki and her name and kimono. It also is a firework reference as mentioned previously. Flying Planet 1,000 Wheels is probably just a reference to fireworks and how the move is done, like a lot of fighters name their moves. I don't really find much else regarding it other than the firework and when it's used. Akaza moves from the ground up with circular movements of his legs, which are, well, the wheels, and kicks his opponent upwards, which I suppose is where the Flying Planet comes from. It's safe to say this is just an on-the-nose name, most likely. 10,000 Leaves Flashing Willow, I think, may have been in reference to Manyoshu, please forgive my pronunciation, and an anthology of poems from over the multiple years. A few reference Buddhist stories, but there also seems to be a garden in Japan that holds every type of plant mentioned in these stories. I'll put the name up on screen, as I'm aware I won't pronounce it correctly. It sounds as if it's comparable to the Shakespeare Gardens for people uncultured like myself to make a comparison. Willows are actually a symbol for letting go of pain and suffering to become strong. It symbolizes safety and belonging, and I think that makes this one of the more tragic meanings behind a move by Akaza, as when he was human, he wanted to be that willow tree in a sense. And in the end, he is the one who has to let go of the pain and suffering and move on to the afterlife and repent for the people he had killed. I think the reason that this is one that damages the ground is because one of the martial arts principles I mentioned earlier, feet, is where you have to keep your balance and focus on putting energy into your feet, and it ties directly to other principles and how well they work. And I think it conveys well where Akaza was mentally when using this move. It's unstable and causes disorder to the fighter. The final form, blue, silver, chaotic afterglow, is yet again a final reference to fireworks. I think the silver as a gem can represent unconditional love at times as well as hope and tenderness. While we typically associate blue with either sadness or tranquility, but I believe these can both work well and represent Akaza, or more so represent Hakuji. While he was obviously broken by the end, many refer to this descending to hell being a calm, graceful way. He gives it up, even if he could have killed Giyu and Tanjiro, and kept going, but he leaves the world in a calm and sad manner, and his giving up is due to his love for Koyuki, who he was ready to see in the afterlife again. Afterglow is light left over after the sun has set. Maybe the love and care he still had for his master and Koyuki after they had passed on, or even his father as well, could be represented in this. So here's a little bonus trivia that I found interesting while looking this up. So I'm very used to voice actors ending up voicing other characters who are similar, but I wasn't expecting this to be as on the nose as it kind of was. So Akira Ishida, wow, I suck at pronouncing everything, is relatively popular among voice actors, notably voicing Gaara from Naruto, which Anime Uproar mentions in its own video on Akaza, discussing how alike they are. So it's likely not a coincidence that they were voiced by the same person. Things that I personally know his voice from well, and keep in mind I'm new to anime, so I know his video game voice is a lot better. Enzo, or Zexion from Kingdom Hearts, who's actually one of my favorite organization members, the protagonist in Ryoji from Persona 3, and one of my favorite Danganronpa characters, Byakuya Togami. I don't think Akaza punching at the memory of his master was a reaction as a demon believing something was there. I believe it was Hakuji in the mindset of a child whose father had passed away and was confronted by a man who challenged him to a fight, only to bring him to live with him. I think it was in memory of before his master was being kind and making him a part of his family, or possibly of when they trained together. I think deep down, Hakuji always knew he needed to confront them eventually, and as a demon suppressed the memory. Although a lot of demons don't remember their past, some like Domaru seem to. I do think Muzan's influence is much of the reason for this, though I do think Akaza himself could have also desired to forget, though it isn't subtle how much he does still care, remembering his battle style and design. When he was searching for strength to protect people and fight others, I think the real strength he needed was to learn to let go. Mentally, he broke after losing people close to him. It's something that would break most people, like it broke Giyu Tomioka, or like Tanjiro likely would have broken if he had lost Nezuko, and like Sanemi did after losing Genya, and Muichiro after losing his twin brother. All these people did make it through their loss and show that what may have happened if Hakuji was not in the wrong place where he had met Muzan, the worst person he could have met in this situation. Perhaps if people were less cruel to him, he wouldn't have turned out as he did, and he could have been more like Tanjiro in that sense. Maybe the true strength were the friends they made along the way. I forgot I wrote that, I'm sorry. Anyway, Akaza is a beloved character in the series, and I don't think that's surprising. Many people may feel like they are outcasts or don't feel they perfectly fit in somewhere, which makes sense as, like a snowflake, we are all unique. While we can't all say we have endured hardship like Akaza has, many of us have felt anger, sadness, and pain that we don't know how to cope with on our own. And I feel like that's what makes Akaza so loved among the fan base. His pain and inability to cope makes him someone we can try to understand and wish things turned out differently for, but tragically it did not. He is by far one of the most beautifully written characters in the story. It is not easy for an author to create someone people hate and make them be loved in the span of one story. Typically, writers can turn a likable character into a hated one with ease, but hated to loved is a feat very few can successfully do, and I think this is one of the extreme examples of it working. I'm very excited to see this animated in the future, and I hope you guys can forgive how long it took me to make this video. There's really no good excuse for it taking so long, and if you waited all those months for it, thank you. I sincerely apologize for the length of time it did take. Hopefully it won't be so slow about working on my future videos, and hopefully the chaos everyone is sitting through will at least calm down. Thank you all for sticking around. If you also have any input on anything I said or didn't say, please let me know in the comments. Also, I try to sound less monotone in this video. I don't feel like I tend to sound very expressive when I speak, but since all you hear is my voice in this video, I attempted to not be like that so much. I also included less formal speech, and I kept the less serious parts in the summary, but if you guys would prefer it all to be completely serious in the future, I can do that. It was really an attempt at giving myself a personality, which, you know, I lack a bit. But I can try to be more chilled out in the future and work towards that. Anyway, okay, for real, I'll end the video now. Thank you guys so much for watching again. I hope you all have a good day. Hey guys, just a little brief editing note, or rather an ending note. I wanted to mention that there's a lot of times during this video where I went back and realized there was more that I wanted to add, and I kept doing it, and eventually I realized if I keep doing this, it's gonna take another 7 months. So I'm just gonna end it off here and not keep messing up the video further with adding things, but if there's anything that I really missed that you think is really detrimental for me to have missed, or kind of annoyed that I missed, please, I encourage you to, like, add it in the comments, and if there is, like, enough, I might possibly do a follow-up. I'm not positive. I feel like I've gotten most of everything that could have been said, really, and I feel like it'll probably be just left in the comments. So if there's anything anyone wanted to read up on that might be extra, maybe look there and see if anyone said anything. But I do feel like I got a good grasp on where it is and everything. I didn't write this out. I'm just saying it, so I'm sorry if it's kind of rambling. Just let me know if there's anything, like, super important that I could have added in here, because there's a lot to unpack with this character. I felt like Domo was the same way, but at the end of the day, there were, like, a lot of comments that were just correcting me on a few things, and I could make a video on that, but I didn't really feel like it was anything that, like, took away from the overall analysis exactly. I felt like it was just a few cultural, or not really cultural, but, like, things that could have been more left up in the air is really what I mean. And it's a lot of speculation stuff, so I didn't feel like that was super important to include. Though I do that a lot with Akaza's character, and I think that's more so because, like, Akaza was more set in stone than Doma was in a lot of ways. Like, it's very easy to understand Akaza's character, I guess, a little bit more because we have a lot more in common with him, and or some people do at least, like, in a way that we would want to help others, I suppose. So, I don't know. I just personally felt like I've done as much as I can with this video at the moment, and if I keep going more into a rabbit hole on it, it's gonna get a little bit off topic and possibly take way longer, which is almost impossible considering how long this took. But just let me know if there's anything I really missed that I should have included. And thank you guys for watching again, and hopefully this is the last end note I make. Yeah, so there's really no way to end this, is there? Thank you.